So the first question is, how about looking at the sugar content of many fruits for diabetic people?
Yes, that is a question that a lot of people struggle with because they've been told that all carbohydrates are turn into sugar and that all carbohydrates are bad. Actually, especially with the keto, paleo, all of these movements. However, what the research shows is that sugar from whole fruit, not juice. You cannot count juice in this, but sugar from whole fruit is actually helpful for diabetics, not harmful. So, and for everybody across the board. And that we are actually, as a nation, low in our fruit intake. And most people, the fruit they eat, bananas, which is fine, but those are not the most antioxidant rich. So we want, like what we're having here, this mixture of citrus and berries and kiwis and apples. These are really cancer fighting. So we don't see the issue. They've done studies where they've given diabetics as many as 20 servings of fruit a day, and they did not see any deleterious issues with their blood sugars.
So
but again, juice. Go ahead.
Any comment on dates? I know you prepare a lot of desserts with dates. So what
Yes.
is your take on that?
So dates are by far the healthiest sweetener, no question, on the planet. So, and date sugar, which is made from just dates that are powdered, is the wonderful choice if you're going to look for a sweetener. However, just dates doesn't make sense for a meal, right? Or for a snack, because they're just one type of fruit and they're very concentrated in calories. So using a few dates in a dessert, but using a cup or 2 cups or 3 cups, I've seen recipes that are just all like several cups of nuts and several cups of dates. I think that's a little overboard. Again, they're a great addition. You can put 2 dates into a recipe, but using that as the core of a dessert, I think is a little bit overwhelming. And the other thing that I think we also need to be aware of is that we are now in a situation where everybody's tongue or palate is overstimulated by sweetness. So it seems like there's never a situation where people don't put sugar into things. Even, the vitamin water people are drinking and it's sweetened. Everything is sweetened. So if dates have a very high sweetness level, and if you get used to eating fruit salads like this, and then you eat a date, 1 is enough because it is so sweet. But if you're normally going from candy, and then you do sweetened tea and sweetened coffee, and everything is sweet, then you eat a few dates and you're still not satisfied. You're eating more and more and more.
So, I would like to get a perspective in turns. First, Dr. Sanjeev and then Erika on their take about, fruits and what they have to say on fruits, for instance, for health and diabetic patient,
Yes. So my take on this is that this was a very excellent presentation, and her point is very well taken. So these fruits, fresh fruits and leafy vegetables, they're very high in nutrients, which are critical for immune health. And she mentioned a lot of those nutrients, such as phytochemicals, flavonoids, vitamin C, vitamin A, vitamin E. Those are all very critical nutrients for immune health. In addition, the other important thing that we need to bring up is the role of fiber. And so that has been studied quite extensively. And what we find is, especially for the gut, the most important prebiotic is actually fiber. And so if you have high fiber in your diet, that promotes the growth of healthy bacteria and healthy microbiome in your gut, which then also leads to good immune health. And so that's another one of the differences between eating real fruit and drinking fruit juice. And so when you're drinking fruit juice, you're losing a lot of the health benefits of fruits. So I completely agree with that.
Thank you, Dr. Sanjeev. Erika, you want to add something to that?
I wish that Tamari could hand some of that fruit through the Zoom screen. It looks delicious. I agree. I think this is a really common question. So I work as a certified diabetes educator, and now we're called Certified Diabetes Care and Education Specialists. They just changed the title. And this is also just really common, but I agree that fruit, you know, it has insoluble fiber that would be like on the skin, and the soluble fiber is inside, like the pectin, let's say, of the apple. And that actually can lower cholesterol and it can lower blood sugar. So I completely agree. When I'm working with people with diabetes, though, because many people on this call may have diabetes and say, wait a second, that doesn't apply to me. It can be very individual, and I often say it's the amount. So we do teach, you know, a kind of classic carbohydrate counting to understand, like, you know, what a good serving for you would be. And it's pretty individual, but you wouldn't, maybe you would eat a cup of that at a time, or you could eat, you know, 3/4 of a cup of a berry and half of an apple, but you wouldn't eat maybe four whole apples or 3, you know, there's, so typically, I won't get into the details, but I would say about, you know, 30 grams or 45 grams of carbohydrate per meal, if that's helpful. And it's very individual. So that's typically how I work with people.
And we'll have to do another session focus more on the diabetes piece, because that idea that people are worried about the sugar, but they don't realize that what's clogging up their cells is the saturated fat, the intramyocellular fat. And so sometimes people just kind of misunderstand that whole process. But absolutely, the individualized piece and the fiber and feeding the gut microbiome, and the fact that the gut microbiome plays such a huge role in our immune system is critical.
Can you elaborate on the importance of phytonutrients?
Yeah, so phytonutrients are a class of nutrients which are, as mentioned, are found mostly in the colored part of fruits and vegetables, and they have been found to have multiple health benefits, including improving immune health, possibly cancer fighting properties, and antioxidant properties. So all the things which are critical for immune health are all present in these phytochemicals. So they're very, very important. And some of the these colored ingredients also help to make vitamins. So for example, the carotenes are ultimately converted into vitamin A, which has benefit in immune health, but also has a benefit in vision and other things. So they've been studied quite extensively, and there are literally thousands of publications on the benefits of these phytochemicals in our nutrition.
Oh, there's a very interesting question here. It says, if I put all that you have in that bowl in the blender to make a smoothie, is it good? What's your answer to that? That's a direct question.
So no, I would not. There are a couple issues. One is that you are going to be breaking some of the cell walls, which can, if it's vegetables, sometimes can make it easier for us to extract the phytonutrients. But something that you'll be missing is the chewing. And chewing is an important function in our gastrointestinal process, you know, our GI tract. And when we chew, it gives our brain the message that we're eating. And so it's going to help with satiety. You can drink a smoothie, and people will know they can put a lot of food in a smoothie and drink that down without feeling it. But that also leads people then to snack and overeat later, because they're not going through that normal process of chewing, that mastication, stimulating the brain, as well as the lower GI tract peristalsis. So I would not, there, are certain circumstances where someone who has maybe issues with dentition that may need something in a different form. If they're dealing with dysphagia from a stroke or something like that, or a dental procedure. But on the regular, to say, oh, I'm just going to put all this in the blender, you're also going to see a higher response in blood sugar. Because again, right now, all of the carbohydrate and all the nutrients are inside the cell walls. And we can do a good job chewing, but we'll never do the same job that you would in a high-powered blender. So again, if my choice is to chew or to sip, my choice would be to chew. And I hope that that is what everybody else will do too.
So let me go for a question which has been coming a couple of times, and this combines two aspects. Do you freeze the fresh lemon juice, and any suggestions for good probiotics?
I'll answer the lemon juice question and then let someone else answer the probiotic, just so we hear other voices. Yes. But yes, I freeze them in ice cube trays, and then I pop them out and put them in a zip top bag, like a freezer bag. And then I have those for myself in the freezer. So yes.
So
the lemon, the antioxidants in the lemon was decreased when it was cooked in studies, but not kept in cold.
So Erika, you want to add something to that?
Do you want?
This is the question.
Do you want me to take the probiotics? Oh.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I typically look for probiotics in food and not in supplements, and that's, as a general rule, where it comes from in nature. And so typically, especially in the Indian diet, I mean, fermented foods like yogurt and dosa and idli, I mean, there's so many places, and maybe buttermilk, all of these fermented products have probiotics naturally, and perhaps Dr. Jain will talk about prebiotics.
I'm coming to him actually. Yeah, so yeah, would you start throwing some light on that? You've done a lot of research in this area. Yeah.
Yes. So regarding probiotics, I sort of mentioned that previously, and I would repeat that statement, that our gut is almost like a rainforest. It has thousands and thousands of different species of bacteria that live there. And so by getting a pill which has 1 or 2 or 5 different species of bacteria, how will that impact that very complex environment is very difficult to predict. And that's why it's people have tried very hard to come up with one set of probiotics which will work for everybody, and that's extremely difficult. But the key is, as Erika mentioned, the key is to use naturally occurring probiotics in things like yogurt, which has been used for thousands of years with good health benefits. So that would be a very good place to start. And the other important thing that's been recognized for a long time, for more recently now, is that it's the anaerobic fermentation, which is also very beneficial. And so that's the process of pickling, where you actually prepare your food with low oxygen. And so you pickle or ferment food in a closed container where you don't have access to oxygen. And in that anaerobic environment, the bacteria that grow are different. And those bacteria are very important for the immune system and good digestion. And the reason for that is our small gut. That's where most of our absorption of nutrients happen. And that small gut has mostly anaerobic bacteria. And so getting the small bowel's health through anaerobic fermentation is very, very important.
So there's another question. You want to add something to that?
I wanted to just echo that importance, and that the Human Microbiome Project that they're doing throughout the United States, the results from that, from what I understand, is the #1 factor in the health of someone's gut is the variety of fruits and vegetables that they eat. So the more, the better. So that 40, 50 different varieties of fruits and vegetables over a week was more important than any specific diet that someone followed. So that's critical. And with the yogurts, now you can get almond-based yogurt, you can get soy-based yogurt, you can get all kinds of non-dairy yogurts that are excellent. And you can make them at home.
Yeah, so one very quick question related to probiotics. Probiotics before food or after food?
Before food. If one is going to take it in the form of a pill, it's best to take it right before food. That way it doesn't get destroyed by the stomach acid.
Okay, so the next one is pineapple mint different from regular mint? And the person is saying that I have lots of mint. What's the difference?
It's just a different variety. It has a little different flavor. No, all mint works. So there's lots of different varieties. So if you can find it at the nursery, then try it. Chocolate mint is fun too, if you haven't ever seen that. But no, they're all wonderful and they're all different. And so that's, again, the variety. That's the spice of life and the spice of our health.
Okay, so there's a short one. Can we freeze rosemary?
You can. Most definitely, you typically just see it dried. So, you know, some of these really woody herbs, they dry extremely well and they're very shelf stable.
Okay, great. So this is a question I think probably we have touched. I'm just repeating it. Is it okay to eat fruit at night?
Yeah, I don't see any real harm in eating fruit at night. We did talk briefly about people with diabetes, whether you want to have a very high, sugar-rich or carbohydrate-rich diet in the evening. That's not a good idea. But again, fruits in their natural form are not very, calorie-rich. And for that reason, they're perfectly fine in the evening as well.
And especially most people in the evening are eating food that they're not hungry for because they're snacking, and they may have gotten into a habit of sitting on the couch and having something sweet or having a dessert. So finishing your meal with a piece of fruit or half a piece of fruit just to give your brain the end is a great habit to get into. Something else too, and again, this could be on another segment that we talk about, but the research is very strong that eating after 7 p.m. is not beneficial. And so for your blood glucose control, your body will respond differently to the same meal if taken at 8 at night versus 8 in the morning. And that's independent of whether you've had sunlight exposure. It's our circadian rhythm. So that's, again, we don't have time to get into all of that, but it's a better idea to finish your last meal early and then walk instead of sit and have something for dessert. It would be better to treat yourself to a walk after eating. And I always recommend brushing your teeth before you go on the walk, because then when you come back, you're not going to eat anything because you have already signaled to your body that you're done eating.
Great. So we have still some questions pending. So I would, in the meantime, request Erica to tell us about conscious eating. Her thesis about, eating your drink and chewing your drink and drinking your food is a
Not my
thesis.
thesis. That's a Mahatma Gandhi quote, and many people have said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So no, but you are a strong proponent of the thesis, and you have a wonderful way of demonstrating that. So would like to spend little time hearing that from you and how people should practice that. And particularly in the lockdown period, there's a lot of time to actually, think through the process of eating, which a lot of people don't do. And you have time often very well demonstrated that. So good to hear that from you, Erica.
It's very complementary to what we're talking about. I love the topic. I'm very passionate about it. So right now we're having a lot of questions about what we eat and when we eat, and this conscious eating, some people call it mindful eating, is more about how we eat and bringing complete presence to the process of eating. And eating is such a wonderful thing. Who here doesn't love to eat? I've rarely met somebody, though I have met a lot of people, and once or twice I've met somebody, maybe Timuri is saying yes, who says, I wish there was just like a pill I could take because it's a nuisance and I just want to get on with my busy work. But most of us, I think 99% of us will say we love to eat, and we often miss it. We miss it. We're completely distracted. We're multitasking. We're in our Zoom meetings. We're doing our email over here, our phone is dinging, and we have our lunch and we're taking bites in between, right? Or sometimes we're walking and talking and eating has become less of a, often a family event, or that we're sitting down, and therefore, a lot of us have suffered. So as Timuri was saying about where, eating the fruit and where it begins, digestion begins in the mouth. So much research has gone with digestion improving, lowering blood sugars, weight management, a lot about stress eating and binge eating. So particularly if you think of the times we're in right now, most of us have had some, amount of stress because of these unique circumstances we're in. And so conscious eating, to me, it's a little bit like meditation meets nourishment. And a lot of people will say, I want to meditate, but I don't have time to meditate. But this practice of eating consciously, we eat. We need to eat to survive. So one of the most beautiful things about it is that we have an opportunity to practice every single time we eat. And I promise you, and it happens to me, and I talk about it and I teach it and facilitate classes, we forget. So you may start eating, and then what happens to us? We go on autopilot, and it's just, we're somewhere else. Either we're somewhere else really, like the multitasking, or we're somewhere else in our thoughts. And maybe, we're thinking about, what we're going to say at that meeting tomorrow, or some issue and problem we're having. And so a lot of the conscious eating process is about being completely present, having gratitude when we eat, thinking about the entire process. For those of you who've gone through like the experiment, and we do this, a lot of people have done it with fruit. Sometimes we do it with a raisin or a chocolate chip or a blueberry or any of those beautiful things in the bowl over there. And every time we eat or take a bite, we tune into it, which seems so simple, but what we'll notice is that, the mind keeps getting distracted, and we just bring it back to the process. And there's many different ways to do that. So
yeah, thanks. Good to hear that. And no wonder this is so critical that the California governor's office actually contacted you to.
It was the
session,
it was the California State Treasurer.
Okay. So there is a lot of concern, about this in the state government as well. So great. Questions are pouring in. So let me take one which is talks about what grain can a pre-diabetic take safely without increasing sugar level. And of course, while taking consideration of the portion, etc. And I think the grain that this person is referring to is millets, wheat, whole brown rice, etc.
My take on it would be any of those whole grains, your body's going to have a different response. Each person's going to be a little individualized with that. So the more intact, the better. So if we're talking about oats, the oat groats are going to be a better choice than something like, you know, in the opposite direction, instant oatmeal, right? So as far as that, and again, it's the structure, the fiber, how long it takes for that to get broken down in your body. But whenever I hear of grains, grains are healthful. I always want people to think about legumes at the same time. So the more of the beans and lentils and peas, like the dried split peas, the better in that meal. So making sure, and that's the prebiotics, the fiber that's fueling the healthful bacteria that are producing the short chain fatty acids, the butyrates that are feeding the gut lining. So grains are okay, but always a grain with a bean and a green. That would actually be a beautiful trio together. But quinoa and the brown rice, what's even better phytonutrient-wise than brown rice is black rice and purple rice and red rice. Those are shown to be even more antioxidant rich and powerful. I had mentioned quinoa, the whole oat groats, all of those are fine.
So here is a quick one. This could be for Dr. Sanjeev. Does Indian pickles have the same effect as pickled vegetables?
Yes, basically any pickling process which is done under low oxygen condition is going to give more of these anaerobic bacteria, which are very important. And so we have some patients in our clinic who would basically pickle every single thing they eat. You know, they just pickle with those special, jars which seal that food, and they pickle everything before they eat it. And so that's one approach that some individuals, especially people with bad allergies, have used. With some benefit. And so, all pickling process is effective.
The other question is, what about making smoothies in the morning using leafy vegetables and vegetables like carrots?
So same situation, if you can chew, you're better off. If you do a smoothie, doing more vegetables than fruit makes the most sense. But again, I think starting your day with a big bowl of vegetables that you actually chew. I often will, when I come back from a run, have salad, but my salad is not a wimpy salad. But you can do, I love kale and cabbage, red cabbage, steamed. That's a beautiful basis to a breakfast. There's no reason why we have to have sweet breakfast foods. The smoothies have gotten very popular, but again, some people put so much into a smoothie that they're just deluging their body with too much at once, and they're not giving their body the chance to do the chewing, which is critical.
So anything that you want to add, Dr. Sanjeev? Erika, you want to add something to that?
I wasn't sure if the question was mixing fruits and vegetables or if it was just vegetables. But
it's just putting everything in a smoothie. That was the question.
It sounded like it was like carrot. It sounded like it was a carrot vegetable without fruit kind of thing, which.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, I think things can. I agree with the chewing when we can, and yet. I think these things can be really tailored. I'm a fan of, like carrot vegetable juice. So I don't knock it when it works for people. I think, there are many ways to a healthy diet. So, I agree with the chewing and the fruit. But I can't say that if it's just like a vegetable carrot, kale, spinach, cucumber, parsley juice. I don't know. It's nice.
That's very healthy. So
Dr.
this
Jane,
is
I don't know
this
if you
is
got, yeah.
yeah. Anything you want to add to that, Dr. Jain?
Well, no, I completely agree that chewing is a very important part of the digestive process. But in life, you know, we always have to deal with balancing efficiency with, you know, nutritional value. And so for some individuals, if the choice is drinking orange juice versus drinking smoothie, I think, you know, the choice is very clear. You know, smoothie is definitely healthier than orange juice is.
So there are some very short questions. We are now, you know, a little bit past time, but very short questions. So for people who are not from the region where quinoa is grown, particularly India, who are not exposed, is it okay for them to have quinoa? That's the question.
Yes. So in my mind, the genetic background of individuals does not have a huge impact on the nutritional requirements in most cases. And so whether quinoa is native to one's culture isn't as important as just the fact that quinoa is a healthy grain. And regarding different grains, you know, there are certain grains which are also high in protein. Also, you know, buckwheat is another one that I would recommend as a grain which is high in protein, high in fiber. It's a very healthy grain as well. But yeah, all these so-called paleo grains, they're all very healthy. The key is having high fiber, complex carbohydrate, and multiple nutrients. And from those perspective, I'm not as much in favor of rice as a grain versus some of these, you know, paleo grains, which are more nutrient rich, and they're also more rich in complex carbohydrates, which are very beneficial.
Amaranth and teff are also two excellent choices.
Mm-hmm.
So other grains, we have a lot more access to grains now, all over the world.